Welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
It's always good to be here.
So we've got a few things for you tonight. Brain food again.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
It is. We've got a couple of guests, too, which is going to be just, it's a good show ahead. So thank you for watching again. So we're going to start today with, we've done a show once before talking a little bit about this, but we've got a little update for you on Bastiat. The Bastiat caucus is part of our legislature. It's been around since when, Rick?
2013.
Since 2013. So when you joined the legislature,
Yeah.
you brought with you the Bastiat caucus and began it, I'm assuming.
Exactly. So the Bastiat caucus, so the reason we're talking about it is because it's been talked about in the news and, you know, really...
In not a good way.
The reputation has been sullied, and interestingly, it's been sullied by those who are a little less interested in the Republican platform, free market, and stuff like that.
Also, probably is, I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking that the people who are sullying the name of it probably are not completely aware of what Bastiat caucus actually is.
Yeah, I think, and so it's interesting because there's a lot of pressure on people who have been partaking in the caucus to, you know, they're feeling the slings and arrows and like, gosh, I don't know, do we want to keep doing this? And it's like, well, you know, you just have to decide. And so here's the lowdown is that in 2013, we had a supermajority of Republicans, and I felt as a new member that I wasn't necessarily grasping everything. There was so much with bills, and it seemed to me that we were passing a lot of things that were not consistent with the Republican platform, like lower spending and so on and so forth. Our spending was like just jacking up like crazy.
Right.
So I thought, what can we do to just get people that are concerned about our spending, that want to adhere to the state party platform, to meet and talk about things and discuss on the floor so that we can help each other be aware, because it's impossible to be right on top of 1,000 different bills that are each amended sometimes 2, 3, 4 times. Exactly. So I started the Bastiat caucus, called it Bastiat. So I want to tell people, because again, it gets a bad name, and there's a radio talk show host in Fargo that is a alleged Republican, hates Bastiat caucus, tries to convince people that we're not Republicans.
That person probably just does not understand.
Governor Burgum's PAC, when he was trying to take out conservatives in the primary, was they were putting out full-page newspaper ads indicating that such and such a legislator was involved with the Bastiat caucus, which is a fringe Frenchman libertarian. So it's so crazy because this group, all we're trying to do is truly adhere to the Republican platform for the state. That's it. And so it's interesting that the establishment type people, or the people that are very interested in cronyism, want to bash us down. The other thing is that and you'll hear this from a certain blogger in the state too, who's, I mean, I think he needs to see a psychologist, but will constantly demean it and say that we're irrelevant. And what's so interesting is, if this group was so irrelevant, you wouldn't be wasting your breath.
I was just going to say, why is that person putting so much time into it then, if that's the case?
Right. So
Should we go back to the beginning and bring up...
I want to bring up exactly...
The person.
So Frederick Bastiat, and why did I pick some Frenchman who was born in 1801, died in 1850, to be the name of the group? And you know what? I could have picked 10 different names. But bring up his graphic. This is he, and he's famous for several different things, but this is the most famous thing, or the most widely read thing. It's called The Law. It was a pamphlet. I encourage everyone to read it. You can easily read it in a day. It's not like it's super fun reading, but if you take the time and go through it, it's fascinating on how spot on he is, and how the things he's talking about apply to today. So
this is way long ago. This guy is not a contemporary person at all.
No, not at all.
This is named after a very, very...
Right, and I thought if I go back, then there won't be like politics about like, well, I don't like that guy. Well, you know what? Nobody knew him.
It doesn't matter.
So he was, here's the guy, what he's famous for, why I picked him, and why some people will say, oh, he's a fringe radical, not a Republican. He is one of the most widely regarded classical economists. He's heavy into free market. He's all about the free market. He is specifically about the right to protect one's life, liberty, and property completely. Completely against socialism. Right. Completely against high taxes. He calls it plunder. That's his big word for taxes.
Oh, I like that word. We may have to bring that word back. Yep. We're using that.
Completely opposed to cronyism and corporate welfare. This is a big thing, and this is a problem with the Republican Party. they're known for corporatism or cronyism, and they shouldn't be because it's not part of their platform. In fact, their platform says they shouldn't be. So that's why Bastiat is a great one to go with. Very much like Ronald Reagan, he was into Austrian economics. He talked about the seen and the unseen. So what he refers to is when government does a policy, does something, all they recognize is what you can see, but they never talk about what you can't see. So for instance, if they say, we're going to tax this group and apply it for this, they point to, well, isn't this nice what we did here? As though it had no other unintended consequences. What he talks about is you have to also take into consideration the money you took from other people. What would that have been spent on? How would that have improved the wealth of society?
Precisely.
So he talked a lot about the seen and the unseen, which is in Austrian economics, we talk about the opportunity cost. So fabulous guy. These people that are trying to convince people that are new to this name that it's fringe and it's radical, they're being very deceitful.
Yes.
Very deceitful,
It's
and I
very
have applied that term.
It's actually mainstream Republican. In fact, it is constitutional. It is platform. I mean, it's very platform centric.
So let's go there.
Yeah,
let's go. I'm going to spend some time. Here's the North Dakota State Republican Party platform. And we're going to zip through. There's 9 planks, okay? This is what the Bastiat stand for. The only thing that makes anyone who had previously called themselves a Bastiat versus non is that we said we are sticking with this. And we are going to try and hold ourselves accountable to the standard of this platform. So the first one is, individual liberty, and it's the right of American citizens come from their creator, not from government. And that everyone has, including the unborn, has the right to life. Personal responsibility is super important. Individuals and families are responsible for their behavior. Public policy should encourage and empower their efforts to provide for their own health, safety, education, moral fortitude, and personal wealth. So you go next to limited government. I mean, what could be more Republican, right? Federal, state, and local governments should be transparent and limited to their respective roles in accordance with the 10th Amendment. God bless the 10th Amendment.
Right.
The size of government regulations, and entitlement and transfer programs should be limited to essential, inherently governmental functions. Critical.
We'd like to highlight that a little bit.
Yep, exactly. Peace through strength and rule of law, national security and sovereignty, public safety, right of self-defense, rule of constitutional and statutory law. It all should be preserved without excessive burdens to civil liberty. So we are the party of law and order insofar as it doesn't intrude upon our civil liberties. What an amazing, amazing plank for a platform.
Isn't it? It is so good. This is so good.
Lower taxes. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's wonderful the way it's phrased, but lower taxes, and we're going to go right to bear arms. Again, pretty straightforward.
Shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed. And then we go to family integrity and the American moral tradition. And here we see marriage between a man and a woman, the immutable biological reality of the two sexes. Now that, I don't know how Bastiat would feel. This is a new thing. I can't say he'd be which side, but all of the other ones he's totally on board.
And we may get to this topic a little later on tonight as well.
Yeah, we are. Quality education. Parents should have the right to rear and educate their children according to high standards of character and quality with minimal government interference. Parents are ultimately responsible for their family's education and should be able to choose among traditional, charter, homeschool, online, private, or other alternative schools. School children should not be restricted in their rights to voluntary prayer, religious expression, acknowledgement of God, the American flag, the Pledge of Allegiance, Declaration of Independence, and the United States Constitution.
Love it. Love it. So valuable. And
last one. Now here's the big one.
Yep.
Here is what the Bastiats are about, have been about, legislative integrity. This is a plank in the North Dakota Republican Party platform. Legislators should lead through personal moral integrity and should consider this platform responsibly before supporting or opposing legislation. That is the only thing we have done as Bastiats.
It's
and this is what the people
Isn't it frustrating?
This is what the people would want. And now what it comes down to is everything that's going on in politics is very much like what goes on in high school.
Yes.
There are the cool kids,
Yep.
and there's pressure on the new kids coming to school. Don't hang out with the nerds or people aren't going to like you. And I tell you folks, that applies 100%. And 10%, that's something I never say, I hate saying that. It applies 100% to what's going on now. I can tell you stories. It's difficult, and
well, ostracizing is ridiculous, and blackballing is ridiculous, and blacklisting, all of that stuff is very high school.
So you know what? We stumble individually and make mistakes. All of us do.
Just stand on your principles and you're good.
That's all you can do.
That's all you can do.
And when you're a legislator, it's number one, have principles. Number two, be consistent in applying those to legislation. Right. We'll be right back.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Fort Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Fort Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Fort Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Well, here we are. We're back for segment 2. And you are back with no apologies on Beck. So it seemed like something weird happened there, but we're going to continue on.
Okay, but so this segment, you did such a great job on your boss deal. This is kind of my thing. This is definitely my thing. So the topic that we're talking about this time is the fact that I view personally the fact that journalism has gone off the edge to the point where journalism is dead. We're at the point now where you no longer actually have journalists available to you. And I'm basing that on my experience in the radio industry. First of all, back when, do you remember when Jeff Alexander was a news reporter on TV? Everybody knew who Jeff Alexander was. And it was a big thing, and we had news directors at our radio stations, and they would go and they would do investigative journalism. They'd be out on the street. They'd be actually scaring up stories. Well, those days are now gone. We no longer have any news people in our radio stations in all of Bismarck Mandan save Dave Thompson at Public, and that is it. There are no longer any news people. The big radio station companies have basically just eliminated that position. So no longer do we have anybody doing any actual searching, anything like that. Now it is at the point where it is all regurgitating stories from the Associated Press or from other news media, and there's no actual investigative journalism any longer in radio. Now, I say this because at this point, journalism is dead because the left has taken over the media, and because of that, what they have done now is they are actually making the news themselves. They are actually doing exactly opposite of what the news journalists of old would have learned in journalism school, which was to see both sides of an issue, weigh things, and then be objective. That word is gone.
Right. Objective means you present the facts,
Precisely.
present all the data, both sides to the best of your ability. You let the viewer or the listener decide.
Exactly.
Subjective would be like us.
Correct.
Now, someone who is an opinion type person, like we are in this role, if they have any integrity, they still are going to present the facts, and then they will opine. They'll give their opinions on it.
Correct.
Now, the problem we have with journalists is not only are they giving their opinion and being subjective rather than objective, but they're actually it's
pushing agendas.
It's called spin, and that's too nice of a word for it. They're actually manipulating how they present the facts to you to present a one-sided narrative. So it's not only are they lacking objectivity, they're actually twisting things to fit their personal narrative.
Just a couple of days ago, I'm going to give you a little video clip to show this point in bold colors for you. This is Rand Paul on ABC with George Stephanopoulos.
I said it was a lie that the election was stolen.
Premise that you're right and we're wrong. Well, let's talk about the specifics of it. In Wisconsin, tens of thousands of absentee votes had only the name on them and no address. Historically, those were thrown out. This time they weren't. They made special accommodations because they said, oh, it's a pandemic, and people forgot what their address was. So they changed the law after the fact. That is wrong. That's unconstitutional. And I plan on spending the next 2 years going around state to state and fixing these problems. And I won't be cowed by liberals in the media who say, there's no evidence here and you're a liar if you talk about election fraud. No, let's have an open debate. It's a free country.
There's no widespread evidence of election fraud that overturned the results. That was stated as well by the Department of Justice, led by President Trump's Attorney General. In Wisconsin, there were counts and recounts.
Actually, it was never studied. Even that's not true. Even that's not true.
William Barr said that directly.
Barr said that, but there was, yes, he said that, yes, that was a pronouncement. There has been no examination, thorough examination of all the states to see what problems we had and see if they could fix them. Now, let me say, to be clear, I voted to certify the state electors because I think it would be wrong for Congress to overturn that. But at the same time, I'm not willing just to sit here and say, oh, everybody on the Republican side is a liar and there is no fraud. No, there were lots of problems, and there were secretaries of state who illegally changed the law, and that needs to be fixed. And I'm going to work hard to fix it, and I won't be cowed by people saying, oh, you're a liar. That's the problem with the media today, is they say all Republicans are liars and everything we say is a lie. There are two sides to every story. Interview somebody on the other side, but don't insert yourself into the story to say we're all liars because we think there's some fraud in the election.
There are not two sides of the story. This has been looked at in every single state. The election results were certified in every single state. There are two sides to every story.
George, you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting who you are as a journalist. If you think there's only one side, you're inserting yourself into the story to say, I'm a liar because I want to look at election fraud and I want to look at secretaries of state who illegally changed the voter laws without the permission of their state legislatures. That is incontrovertible. It happened. And you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, oh, nothing to see here, and everybody's a liar, and you're a fool if you bring this up. You're inserting yourself into the story. A journalist would hear both sides, and there are two sides to this story.
And this is why journalism is dead. Right there, because you're inserting yourself into the story and you're not doing journalism, nothing objective about what you just saw there.
Right. So as an example of objectivity, if George actually cared about the statement that there was election fraud, instead of just saying, hey, there's no proof of election fraud, recognizing, as we all do, that most of the court cases, the significant ones, were not looked at. They didn't look at the evidence. They said it's not in our jurisdiction or whatever, there's no standing, whatever their reasons were, but they didn't actually look at it. So a good journalist would say, wow, what a great story. Let's dive in and let's prove whether there is or is not election fraud.
Precisely.
But instead, George says he's just doing his one-sided thing, repeating, hey, this is done, there's nothing to look at. If you still say there's something to look at, you're a liar. George, by the way, had a bachelor's in political science and a master's in theology. So I'm thinking that he missed out on some of the opportunities to take journalism classes.
Well, prior to joining ABC News, he also worked in the Clinton administration, you may remember, as the senior advisor to the president for policy and strategy. So he comes from a bit of a bias. It's not like he went straight from journalism school into broadcasting. His background was clearly on the Clinton campaign and working for the Clinton administration. So what Rand Paul is trying to say, historically what would happen, I thought there would fraud, you would interview someone who said there wasn't. Now, to me, this whole conversation, and please look up the clip and watch the whole 5 minutes of it or so, because it is gold. I mean, it is so good. Because Rand Paul just brings up the fact that people are not looking at two sides of it. And he says it over and over and over again, and George Stephanopoulos just basically parrots the same talking points of the left over and over again, the fake news.
Right.
So.
And George is actually not the worst of them.
Right.
He actually, you know, relative to the others, he's okay. But I mean, you just see here that it's just lacking. And if they just gave the people of the United States more credit to be able to present facts and let them make their own decision, but instead they believe it's their job and duty to force feed something to the people to get them to comply.
And that's why the numbers have plummeted with some of the TV stations, and that's why even the Fox News is now, because they weren't being objective any longer either, and it was very frustrating to the viewer who had objectivity previously with the other people who ran the network. So they had a little regime change there. So journalism is dead, in my personal opinion, and you just saw it. Okay, next when we come back, you're just laughing at me, but honestly, it frustrates me because I remember the old days when we used to have journalism. All right, we'll have a guest coming back. I'll let you introduce him when we come back.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
2.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. I am here with Representative Mike Lefor from District 37 in Dickinson. Welcome, Mike. Very happy to have you on.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So Representative Lefor is someone I respect a great deal. And it's it's been interesting. Did you come in 15?
15.
Yeah. So I think that you have excelled and are highly respected in the legislature, and so I admire you for that. I believe that you are a person of integrity. You are a person of logic. I'm not just trying to build your ego. I'm gonna try and tear it down shortly.
Keep going.
And that regardless of where a person is on an issue, you can stand by and give reasoning for why you are standing where you are. And that's the case with this next bill that we're going to be talking about. It's a bill of yours, the Legacy Streams, House Bill 1380.
Right.
And why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about that bill?
I'd be happy to. About 3 months ago, I was thinking about the Legacy Fund and what can we do as a legislature to show leadership in developing positive things for the taxpayer in the future. And what I started to look at, building a formula, I thought of the 5-year rolling average of the principal of the legacy balance at the end of each fiscal year. And so if you look at that formula, it should always trail the earnings. In other words, leaving extra funds to go back into principal, or for whatever reason the taxpayers would like some legacy project or projects that would be available for that. And so I talked with a lot of different people, and I think fundamentally probably one of the things that I would like to see us do a little bit differently is invest in North Dakota. And the way that we would do that is by putting investments in certain areas, whether in the Legacy Streams bill, I call it, it actually has 3 different funds that is for capital investment. And we've invested, we have a big investment in agriculture and oil as far as our economy is concerned. The problem is that obviously those are commodities and they're cyclical in nature. And we know that for the last several years, ag has been down and oil is now down. So how do we diversify our economy? Well, I believe that one of the ways that you do that is by working with venture capitalists and working with them, that they have skin in the game. And there are people that are venture capitalist experts that have the ability to discern what is a good project and what isn't a good project. And there has to be a definite return on investment to the taxpayer in terms of jobs, in terms of workforce training, what have you. And so I've always been a big believer in that. And so it kind of goes back to Governor Bill Janklow, even though later in life he had some issues. I thought he was a tremendous leader. And he brought a lot of jobs to South Dakota in the credit industry in terms of Visa and Sears and some of those. So he actively worked with these companies to bring people to that state. And I've always been a big believer in bringing more taxpayers to the state, diversifying our economy, and not raising taxes.
Yeah. Let's pull up the bill here, take a quick peek at that, and then we've got some highlighted sections. Bring one of those up for me if you would. I'm highlighting kind of the amount of the money, and what it's talking about here is that it would be a percentage, which is 7% of the 5-year average of the legacy fund.
Correct.
And So that comes out to be roughly what at this point?
Well, just by doing some projections, and you look at the last 4 years plus what's going to happen next year, you have about $7.1 billion in an average balance, and so when you take that, you take 7% of that amount, you come up with just under $500 million. That would go into the various streams that I have put into the bill, and the earnings at 5% would be probably around $800 million. So you'd still have $300 million left over, and that's pretty important. We don't want to spend every nickel, and like I said, it's very important to me that whatever we do, there has to be a return to the taxpayer. And it might not always be to us, it might be to our children, it might be to our grandchildren. And so we invest in safer roads, better water, getting these projects. And Rick and I have talked previously about the bonding bill and some of why I think there's some benefits to that as well. But to me, the longer that we defer maintenance, the longer that we defer building costs, those costs just go up. So part of what I'm talking about here is investing in those now and not backfilling the budget. Just invest in those and increase our reach in terms of what we're able to do to lower costs of government.
Now you've got a number of things. Let's pull up the next graphic here. On page 5 you've got many things. But I've taken the liberty to create a pie chart for you, and you're very welcome, Representative Lefor.
Thank you so much.
This is the pie chart. I'm sure you'll want to use that for your presentations. So there are some things in here that I don't think are half bad. And for instance, the revolving loans. I like revolving loans as a use of legacy fund earnings because the money eventually comes back.
It does.
Some of these things I'm concerned about, and it's a matter of a difference of opinion of the best way to spend funds. Some of them I think fall into cronyism or corporate welfare. Housing incentive fund is going to be a big one. Economic diversification research, clean sustainable energy. I was surprised about that one. And then the other thing is that some of them should be going into the ongoing expenses of governance that we have in our general fund, such as building maintenance. And so I'm a little bit worried that a couple of things, again, you and I differ on the aspect of is it appropriate to spend the funds for economic diversification. My opinion is you get economic diversification by getting rid of regulations and taxes, and then businesses come instead of picking the winners and losers. But the other aspect is I'm worried that we're going to start using that for ongoing expenses that we should be, out of our $15 billion biennial budget this last time around, we should be able to be funding without going into the earnings.
It may surprise you, but I agree with you in terms of that if we're going to invest in something, let's say, and we talked about deferred buildings and maintenance, the state of North Dakota has $27 million worth of Category 4 deferred maintenance projects. So it's going to happen. In last session, we agreed to let NDSU build a $50 million building, provided that they got half of it, or $21 million, in private funds. Okay, so what's happened? That hasn't happened. So now if we want to do that, that's going to cost more. And that's where I think there's a lot of things that we agree on. But if we're going to make the investment, if we're going to take some of these streams, it's not meant to, believe me, increase costs. It's designed to hopefully reduce costs, because the more we put those projects off, the more they're going to cost. And so the beauty in this, and Rick, you and I have debated each other on the floor. We talk all the time. And I have a pretty good feeling where you come from, and I think you have the same of me. The beauty in the Legacy Streams bill that I tried to put in is flexibility. If there's any word to describe it, it's flexibility. So that if we decide that, you know what, Representative Becker wants to put in an amendment to remove this particular provision, or we want to add another provision. I'm not going to say that all the ideas I put forward are the best. I'm going to say that I wanted to move the discussion forward so that we can make the best investments in North Dakota. And part of this, too, is that in 3 streams, I've got about $65 million in investing in North Dakota to bring jobs to North Dakota. That's the whole idea. I think we're one of the least capital intensive states in the country. And if we don't do something about that, we're going to be left behind.
Gotcha. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Mike Lefor. I think you make a good case. I'm not sure I'm going to vote for it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm not, but who knows? Who knows? Mike, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Really do. Hopefully we can have you back. Ladies and
would love
gentlemen,
to.
we will be back shortly. Stick around, another guest.
Perfect. Very good.
Howdy, folks. It's the Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you'll do for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Back. We are back, and a new guest, Representative Ben Koppelman, West Fargo. What district are you?
District 16.
16. I can't keep any of those straight. So you are a busy bee. How many bills are you prime sponsor on?
Well, at risk of spoiling the news for tomorrow, which I think is in an article, I've sponsored 17 bills.
Wow, that is a lot of bills.
That's a lot.
Very ambitious.
Yep, that is a lot. So you're busy. One of your bills, and you've got a lot of good bills. Ben has a lot of good bills. He's been a very, very strong Second Amendment supporter, but his bills run the gamut for things. And generally speaking, they are very good for the citizens of North Dakota. This bill we're bringing up more because of its gratuitous interest in reporting. So tell us about House Bill 1298.
Well, House Bill 1298 is a bill that would protect female sports by ensuring that we kind of keep the way that sports are operated, boys playing against boys, girls playing against girls. Now, Title IX on the federal level is kind of what started that back in '72, and it's created a lot of opportunity for young ladies over those decades.
Mm-hmm. We have up here, it's that no government entity in the state that receives public funding may not allow an individual who was assigned the opposite sex at birth to participate on an athletic team sponsored or funded by the state, political subdivisions, or entity which is exclusively for females or exclusively for males. So that's a very legalese way of saying if you were born a boy, you have to stay and play on boys' teams, and if you were born a girl, you have to play on girls' teams.
Now, there are other states that are going through this as well, I'm assuming, correct?
There are other states that are going through it as well. To the first point, yes, it's very literal in its meaning, but I have actually learned something about how this works and the way I've defined it. For example, football. You might say, well, you heard about the kicker in Vanderbilt. Well, you know, maybe there's a North Dakota kicker on a team. I thought somebody said maybe Mandan or somebody has a girl kicker. And because football has allowed girls to play, and that's part of Title IX as well, it's not exclusively for boys.
Sure.
So girls can actually play on boys' sports teams still under this bill. But boys cannot play on girls' sports teams because of the competitive disadvantage.
Do you agree with that, Lori?
I do, 100%
Oh, okay.
I agree
didn't know
with
if you were
that.
gonna
I do believe there is
ask
a
him to
competitive
Indian wrestle or
disadvantage. I've seen many races where I have seen formerly boys, now girls, racing against girls, and they just blow them out of the water,
Yeah.
especially with sprinting and running races. It's just really difficult to watch. And after the girls work so hard, and then, like, seriously, and then they have to, yeah.
If you want to know an interesting statistic that points that out, the Olympian female, that's the fastest woman, if you will, in the 100
yard dash.
In a 100-yard dash, her best time, which is not her Olympic time, it was actually some other record time. Her best time is beat every year 15,000 times by men and boys.
There you have it.
So that shows you the differential in competitiveness.
That's right. Right.
Every year.
There's a huge disparity.
Are you getting some pushback on this?
Well, I'm definitely getting pushback. There's a lot of effort to try to say it's an anti-transgender bill. When I was researching this and looked into the policies that the North Dakota Activities Association has on this issue, I was told that, to the best of their knowledge, there aren't any individuals who are using that policy, formerly boys, now identifying as girls, to play on the girls' teams. So it's clearly not an anti-transgender bill. It's clearly a pro-female sports competitiveness bill. And I think that's a little bit of a straw man to try to make it controversial, to try to say it's anti a certain community, when in reality it's trying to just ensure that we continue having opportunity for our young women like we've had for almost 50 years.
Right.
Absolutely. Tulsi Gabbard, I think, came out in support of this type of thing, correct?
She did. She was actually on the national level a big cheerleader for it.
Wow.
And she had bipartisan support. I think Senator, was it Loeffler, formerly of Georgia?
Kelly Loeffler.
Or Kelly, yep. I think she was a sponsor of a bill similar to that in the Senate. And I believe there was a House member, maybe from Nebraska or Oklahoma or somewhere, that had co-sponsored the one in the House with Tulsi Gabbard.
Gotcha.
And Tulsi Gabbard, so you know, is a Democrat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those who are watching and going, "Oh, who's Tulsi Gabbard?" Yeah,
well, she ran against Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination.
Right, yeah. And that's interesting that
can you imagine if she would have gotten that?
Oh,
that would have been good.
Right.
The other thing that I'm wondering about with this is if there's any chance a lawsuit would get traction. Do you see anything in that regard?
Well, there's always a chance a lawsuit would get traction, but one of the reasons why I chose to write the bill the way I did and why I didn't write it the way that it was done in Idaho was I wanted it to be even-keeled. I wanted it to be, kind of equal treatment to both sexes, to be compatible with Title IX, and to try to not suggest that it's written in such a way where it's going to change the way things already operate.
Did somebody come to you and propose this subject, or how did you go about deciding to even bring the bill forward?
Well, I wasn't sure that I was going to be the sponsor of the bill. I had the language drafted, and anybody could have been the sponsor of the bill. But you could say that I'm sort of a shotgun dad. You could say that I, protect my daughter, look out for, that's important to me. And I became aware of the issue happening in various places, like races in Connecticut, which describe what you mentioned earlier, the lawsuits in Idaho, and some of the other concerns. And I said, well, what can we do to ensure that our starting point, our baseline, our prime tenet, I guess, is that going to protect the competition in female sports. And then every other conversation of any other derivative of that can happen from that starting point.
That's excellent.
Very good. This is, in case you're interested in following along on the legislative website, it is HB 1298, transgender sports. Is there a name for your bill? Is there something?
We don't have titles on bills
right?
in North Dakota, and sometimes I think that's a really good thing.
That is really a good thing.
But just House Bill 1298.
Okay, very, very good.
Ben, thank you very much. It's interesting, like I say, Ben's got a ton of good bills. If you like legislation stuff, if you're one of those kind of people, Ben's a great one to follow. He does a lot of good work for the state. Thank you. We'll have you on again, I'm sure. We are going to be up next with Brain Food.
Ben Koppelman, thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot for having me.
We'll be right back.
Howdy folks, it's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Well, we're back. We are back for segment 5. No more dang guests. I've had enough of guests.
I like having guests. They're so informative.
They are.
I actually really enjoy having guests. All right, so
Brain food.
We're finishing up with brain food tonight. Tonight, I am starting with a word that I tend to use a lot. I do use this word because
more than anybody I know.
I do. I like it because to me, I use it as a synonym for the word timely. And that's actually not what it means. But I also think I would apply this word very much to you, Dr. Becker.
Oh.
Because you tend to predict things and then they come true, and then we have to show them again on the show. So my first word in brain food tonight is the word prescient. And it looks like prescient, but it's prescient. And prescient is an adjective, and it is basically knowing or suggesting correctly what will happen in the future. A prescient warning is something that is, in my mind, timely. So that's why I put that in there. Also, synonyms for prescient include clairvoyant and predictive and prophetic. But the one I think most applies in prescience to you would be visionary. You're welcome.
So yes, prescient, if you look at the word, pre-science. Science means knowledge. This is before having knowledge, so anticipating or having predicting, etc. So let's see, what the heck do I have?
I'd say use timely because you always seem to know it and it's perfect timing. So that's why I think that. Okay, go ahead.
I see. I think you may be biased, but
maybe a little bit.
Next, I've got a little statistics and facts graph. It deals with transgender. One of the things that's most concerning to me is the mental health of transgender people and their proclivity for suicide. And there are different reports that are out. Some are heavily disregarded by people on the left, and some are not. And there's a lot of back and forth. The question is, even after transgender surgery, does the suicide rate go down, which you would think that it would? Additionally, with the complete change overall in society on acceptance, if we want to use that term, you would think that overall suicide rate would go down just in general for transgender people.
Those numbers are horrible, Rick.
They are horrifying, and I think that underlies something else that is going on with mental health and the just general overall acceptance without concern for the individual, simply to accept whatever it is that they're feeling, I think is maybe detrimental.
This makes me think of going back to earlier our segment about Bastiat and talking about the unseen consequences. People see the one side, but they don't look at the unseen consequences, and this would be one of those cases.
Yep, absolutely.
So that is very sad. Those are awful.
They're horrible.
Center for Suicide Prevention is from where they come, which I thought was a pretty reputable,
unbiased,
pretty reputable group. Okay, so my next word is a word you may not have ever heard before, and it could be spelled one of two ways. You can do it with a Z or with an S, and that is incognizant. Incognizant. Incognizant is lacking knowledge or awareness, unaware, not cognizant, failing to recognize or apprehend, failing to notice something. For instance, I'm going to give you some sample sentences because somebody suggested that to me in an email or something. They've been seeing the show. They're like, use it in a sentence so they can hear how to use it in a sentence. So I got a couple of sentences for you. A bunch of loud partygoers who seemed utterly incognizant of the disturbance they were creating.
I like it.
That's one. Or another one. The Biden administration appears to me to be completely incognizant. Now, the word means clueless, ignorant, innocent, insensible, nescient, oblivious. That's a good word, oblivious. Unacquainted, unaware, unconscious. Also, uninformed, unknowing, unmindful, unwitting, incognizant.
So next time I'm camping at a campground,
right,
and people are up drinking at their campfire until 3 in the morning, I am going to go out and I'm going to say, what the hell's wrong with you incognizant people?
Exactly, fabulously.
And that will completely win them over.
Perfectly in context. That was fabulous.
Yes.
So, incognizant.
Next is my number 2 item. We have a photo of Christine Jorgenson. Christine Jorgenson
lovely.
Is oftentimes considered to be the first transgender person.
What?
Yes.
In this picture?
Well, yes. So, but here's what's interesting.
Oh, now I see. Okay.
Well, okay.
Takes me a while.
Okay. I'm just trying to bring about facts here, okay?
Okay.
So, Christine Jorgenson is frequently considered to be the first person to undergo transgender surgery. In actuality, she was not, but the first one to undergo hormonal therapy as a part of transitioning, which would be, very important for a significant good outcome. The first person to undergo a type of transgender surgery was Alan Hart in 1917. This is not transgender in the way you think of it, but this Alan Hart was the new name, who had gender dysphoria, which is a term that we used medically, if you're not happy with your gender, you don't feel like you're the right
actually
gender,
right, correct.
had a hysterectomy and a gonadectomy. So basically just an oophorectomy is what we call it now. Rudolph, known later as Dora Richter, in 1922 had an orchiectomy, which is having your testicles removed, and then in 1931 had a penectomy. So that's the first person to go that far in that regard.
Did you say that was 1922?
1922 and 31.
Wow.
Now, Lily Elb, whose name originally was Einar Magnus, transitioned in the 30s, had a penectomy, and they implanted an ovary in his abdominal musculature.
I've never heard of such a thing.
I find it very interesting. In 1931, had a vaginoplasty, so you create a vagina, and they implanted a uterus, which I have never heard of. Now, when I was in training in plastic surgery, we did do transgender surgery. I learned how to create a penis, and I learned how to create a vagina, and pretty interesting surgery. But transplanting a uterus
I've never even
blows me
heard
away.
of that. That's crazy. What year was that? Do you have
That was in about 1930, I don't know exactly, 1931 was the vaginoplasty. Oh, and the uterus. Anyway, unfortunately that person, Lily, died I think a few weeks later because of rejection and infection.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me.
1951 was the first phalloplasty. That's creating a penis.
Okay, phalloplasty. All right, the other PHA.
And 1999 was the first medioidioplasty, which is you make a clitoris into a penis.
Wow.
There's so much you can do.
Interesting stuff. Wow, that's crazy. All right, we're out of here. So next time, join us because we're going to have two guests again, two different guests.
More guests!
And
Come on.
more brain food.